we're going to be talking about the top battles heading into San Francisco 49ers training camp this offseason. Get your popcorn ready because we're going to have battles at nearly every position, but we are going to identify the top ones that you should be paying attention to in training camp right around the corner. Woo, boy, I can smell it. I can smell it. If you could smell it too, smash that like button, drop an SDS in the chat. Let's talk about it. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, SDS? Shout out Sourdough Squad. Shout out Gang. Shout out Mod Squad. Shout out Niner Gang. Oh boy, we litty out here. Today's a good Monday. Today might be one of the, it's still low key day, but I don't know. It's a different type of Monday than usual. Like normally, I'm like, oh, here we go, more quarterback talk, blah blah blah. Let's get in the hamster wheel, do it all. I'm not feeling that way today, and you know why? Because just looking right down the pipe, training camp. Training camp is almost here. I can feel it. I'm starting to get that anxiety where I'm like, man, I got to get my plans together. I got to start scheduling things out. I got to start rearranging my schedule. That means training camp is here. That is almost here. So we are now shifting our focus from all these off-season storylines and narratives and all the blah, blah, blah. And we are going to be talking about things to start identifying in training camp. What we're going to be watching, what we expect, what we want to see, what we don't want to see. We're going to start talking about all that type of stuff because, again, as you know, rookies report on the 18th. In 8 days, we got rookies reporting. Then a week later, we have vets reporting. And guess what? That means football is back. Alex says, I can taste training camp. It's that close. That's how close it is. What's good, Paul? Shout out my brother in the UK. Shout out the SDS. What's good, gang? What's good to all the squad? Let's get the guys shout out here. Let's go. We see the bread gang, gluten gang, gang. We see everyone in here. What's good? Yeah, we got the man bun on Monday. Appreciate it. This is a throwback tee. Love it. Shout out Potato Gang. You know the vibes. Smash that like button. It just feels good. This is a good place to be in. Just a good place because the dog days of the offseason are coming to an end. I don't consider training camp to be the offseason for me personally. For me, that's when my season begins. And then from training camp, hopefully, all the way throughout Super Bowl weekend, it's all gas, no brakes. Honestly, it really is all gas, no brakes until OTAs, minicamp. Really. So there really is no offseason. It's a figment of our imagination these days. There is no offseason when it comes to especially the San Francisco 49ers. But with all that being said, let's talk about some of the top matchups that we can look at heading into training camp, what we're going to be looking for. And again, this can be quantified in two different ways. We can look at matchups in two different ways, and this is how I'll discuss and break them apart so you know which ones I'm talking about. We have position battles. So guys going into camp fighting for spots or what have you. So we have position battles, but then we also just have pure, unadulterated, I don't even know if that's a word, competition battles. I'm talking offense versus defense. those battles. So we have two battles, two different types of segmented battles, position battles, and we have battles of offense versus defense. I am most excited about offense versus defense. That is what I'm excited about because, again, I'll tell you a quick story of what is it, 2021 49ers training camp. First day of training camp, first day of pads, first day of padded training camp. This is the first opportunity that I'm getting my eyes on Alex Mack, center for the San Francisco 49ers. Recently, 49ers had signed him in the offseason, so we haven't seen Alex Mack yet. So that's, you guys know me. I'm an O-line guy. So at training camp, when pads are on, that's where my eyes go. I am watching O-line, D-line. So very first thing I want to see Alex Mack. I want to see what this guy's all about. I mean, he's getting a little long in the tooth. He's a little older. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer, most likely at center. I wanted to see what he was about. First rep of team period in training camp, Javon Kinlaw lined up directly across from him at nose tackle. So I got my popcorn ready. I am getting ready to see what this is all about. Alex Mack fires off the ball and flatbacks Javon Kinlaw so fast. I was like, ooh. It was amazing. And then they kind of get at it. They're like, scuffling a little bit. Very next play, Javon kind of was like, hey, that can't happen to me. He kind of gives it to Alex Mack the very next play. They start pushing and tugging. That's what I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to those types of matchups. I'm looking forward to seeing these bulls going head to head and seeing who stands out, who has the upper leg. So that was, again, I just go back to some of those matchups. I go back to last year's matchup. Was it last year? I think it might have been the year before as well. When we thought when D Ford too, I think it was the year before. It was when D Ford, we didn't really know what D Ford was, and it was like watching D Ford versus McGlinchey when D Ford was healthy for that particular part of training camp. It gets exciting. You get to see these matchups, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. Dabbing Hyena, welcome back, my boy. It's that time of the year. It's that time of the year. If you aren't subbed, let's sub, baby. You know the vibes. And Callie's going to start us off with a good one. What's good to the boy Travi? We see you in the chat. Callie starts us off with a good one, and we'll start here. He says, my eyes would go directly to Trent versus Nick and Mooney versus BA. I think these are the top two. I think I feel pretty confident in saying that these are the top two. When you look at Trent Williams versus Nick Bosa, you're talking about a silverback gorilla versus a grizzly bear. Just talk about two equally phenomenal talents going up against each other. Every year, Nick versus Trent is must-see TV. Again, going back to last year, like you would see plays where Trent gets the upper hand on Nick, and then Nick would come right back and he would cook Trent. And you're just like, knowing how great both of them are individually, if you're a football purist and you just love those types of games within the game, like, yeah, we love scoring points. We love the turnovers, but watching Nick Bosa set up Trent Williams with outside speed, hand swipe counter, inside move, beating Trent Williams in a blink of an eye, that for me gets my blood pumping. And then to see Trent Williams come back and then stonewall Nick the very next play, it's it's Birdman meme action. Like you're just sitting there, you're just rubbing your hands together. You're like, this is football in its purest form. And that's what I'm so excited about with training camp. Of course, Trent and Nick are at the top of the list when it comes to matchup mono versus mano y mano, 1v1, those types of things. Like when you go to training camp and you can focus on these two. Now, granted, they don't match up against each other all that often. Trent Williams is a veteran. He gets days off. They rotate in quite a bit. They don't match up all that often. So when it does happen, pay attention, lock in, and enjoy it because you're watching two Hall of Fame players go at it, make each other better. And come on, that's what football's about, man. That's what football is. And I'm just getting excited thinking about it. But again, Callie hit it on the head with two of them. Two of them. Mooney versus BA. I just put out a video about why I think Mooney is the most underrated player right now heading into training camp. And I explained why I feel like he's underrated. I say he's underrated because he's just not talked about enough. He's in that upper echelon of 49ers players. But again, we put a lot of focus on Fred, on Bosa, on Trent, on CMC, on Kittle, on Debo, on Aiyuk, on Greenlaw now. You see how much hype Greenlaw's getting? Like, Greenlaw's getting his love. Talanoa Hufanga's getting his love. Even Demo's getting his love. And I'm looking around and I'm like, you know what? Charvarius Ward isn't talked about enough. Charvarius Ward just isn't discussed enough because, in my opinion, Charvarius Ward is heading into this training camp as one of the league's best cornerbacks. He, for sure, in my opinion, is definitely top 10. I think you can make the argument that he's top 5. And I think Charvarius has an opportunity in front of him to become arguably the league's best cornerback this year. And a lot of that starts in training camp with battles against Brandon Aiyuk. We already know Brandon Aiyuk's going to cook. If you were at training camp last year, I would say Brandon Aiyuk was the best player on the field in 49ers training camp 93% of the days. There'd be maybe one day that someone else would step up, but majority of last year's training camp was dominated by Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk cooked everyone. I think Charvarius Ward and Brandon Aiyuk heading into this training camp, being able to do 1v1s, 9-on-7s, 7-on-7, and 11-on-11, they are going to continue to push on each other. And I cannot speak to, again, being a former player myself, speaking to how having someone across from you who is, let's just say, equal or better. Like, again, how do you quantify better? Charvarius, they play different positions. But let's just say Aiyuk is playing at his highest level. That is going to make Ward better. That is going to make Ward elevate. That is going to make Ward push harder. Those are the matchups and the battles that we want to see in training camp, because if these guys are getting after it, that means they are getting better. One of the coolest things from training camp last year was watching Mooney and BA chill after practice. So after training camp would get through, they'd break. You'd either have some players walk over, get autographs, do all that type of stuff with the fans, or you'd have other guys stay after, do some drills, whatever. Multiple times, Mooney and BA would stay after together, just them two, and they would talk about releases. They would talk about leverage. Like, you could just watch them. You would just watch them give each other info back and forth. And that is going to make these guys better. So Mooney, BA, absolutely. a matchup that I want to see. I again, it's to me, it's part two. Part one was last year. I would say Aiyuk won last year. Aiyuk consistently, like, of course, Mooney had his moments too, but BA consistently won those battles against anyone. BA was unguardable last year in training camp. I'm excited to see what Mooney does this year. That's depth. These two, I mean, Callie came out on fire with two of those. This is the one I'm going to be watching so closely, is how the 49ers offensive line reacts to Javon Hargrave. Specifically, I want to see Javon versus Aaron Banks, Brendel, and Burford. Those are the three guys that I am looking for versus Javon. That is, get your popcorn ready. Obviously, the things that I'm also looking for is how protections are adjusted. Because if we do see the full starting offensive line, I do imagine the starting defensive line versus the starting offensive line. I do imagine the starting D line that we'll see out there is going to be Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Drake Jackson. I want to see how the 49ers offensive line reacts to that package. Because just again, to give you insight into how this works for training camp, the 49ers offense is running their stuff. It's first team 49ers offense versus first team 49ers defense. So the 49ers defense is running their stuff. 49ers offense is running their stuff. So 49ers offensive line, Jake Brendel, is going to come to the line and he's going to start sliding protections. He's going to start making adjustments based on the way the defense front looks. And that's what I want to see. I want to see what their adjustments are with Javon. Do they leave Javon singled up with a guy like Burford or Banks? Or do they command, or do they have to keep in a back for protection? I know Kittle talked about this before. They called it like the chill play, where it's like basically what McCaffrey does is he stays in for protection. He goes A gap to C gap. So he goes, eyes go A gap for interior pressure. Next read is B gap. Next read is C gap. And then anything outside of that, and if nothing is there, then you release out the backside for a potential dump out pass or something like that. So what I'm interested to see is, are they keeping backs in for protection? Are they actually having to engage in A gap pressure? Because that is going to change a ton of things for the way that defensive line is attacked. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Javon Hargrave versus interior offensive line. That's what I'm looking forward to. How does Javon change the complexion? Because what that's going to tell us is how the 49ers respond to Javon is how other teams are likely going to respond to Javon. And are they able to still send chips and doubles at Bosa? Does that free up other guys on the interior? Again, I think Javon has an opportunity to change the complexion of what we've seen from this defense so far. So that matchup, absolutely looking forward to that one. Another matchup that I'm really excited to see, Diamador Lenore year 3. Diamador Lenore versus Aiyuk, Jennings, and Debo. Why I think these cornerbacks have such a great opportunity to get better in this training camp is because the 49ers wide receivers right now, they have such different skill sets in that room. Debo Samuel is a much different skill set opposed to Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk is a much different skill set opposed to Jawan Jennings. They are just all different. And I think that ability that they're all different but all effective in their own ways is going to be phenomenal practice for these 49ers defensive backs. I'm looking for Diamador Lenore versus Aiyuk, Demo versus Jennings, Demo versus Debo. How do they respond to each individual skill set? How do they hold up versus each individual skill set. I mean, one-on-ones from wide receiver, cornerback standpoint is always a ton of fun to watch in training camp because you get the true one-on-ones, especially during those one-on-one drills. But also in team period, how do they respond? Uh, definitely, definitely looking forward to that particular one. Um, what other ones are you guys looking forward to? What other position not position battles, but more 1v1 type matchups are you guys excited about that maybe we didn't mention yet heading in to training camp? Boomerat says, smash that like button or you're a Seahawk fan. Yuck. I agree. Smash that like button. Um, very, very excited. Uh, let's see. Uh, Training is so much. Okay. So anyways, will Shanny and Wilkes call against each other? Yeah, I think so. That's how it's going. That's how it's going to work. Is in those team drills where it's first team offense versus first team defense, they're going at each other. They're not running anyone else. They're not running a scout team out. That's the cool thing about training camp is they don't have like a scout team or like who they're trying to replicate for that week of. Like typically a game week preparation, you have your scout team running plays that your opponent runs. You have them in matchups that their opponents have, not in training camp. It's Wilkes. It's gonna be Wilkes versus Shanahan. So there's a matchup that I'm also looking forward to seeing. That's gonna be a good one. Um, I like this one. CMC versus Fred and one-on-ones. Yeah, I agree. Um, so this is how they do breakouts of one-on-ones. It's going to be linebackers, linebackers and safeties versus running backs and tight ends. So that's how they do those one-on-ones. Obviously, O-line versus D-line, and then wide receiver versus cornerbacks. So excuse me. Those matchups are always fun. Watching running back versus linebacker because they do twofold. They do pass protection one-on-ones and they also do routes one-on-ones. One of the years I remember Elijah Mitchell pancaked Dre Greenlaw in a pass blocking one-on-one, and I was like, "Ooh, boy, okay, we see you, Elijah." That might even have been Elijah's rookie year, but it was pretty impressive. But yeah, CMC versus Fred in one-on-ones. I'm excited to see Jair Brown in some one-on-ones. I'm excited to see how Jair Brown faces off against Kittle. Seeing what Jair looks like against a top elite NFL tight end in practice. I think I think we're gonna have a really good sense of what Jair could be. And it starts in those one-on-ones. It's gonna translate to team. I'm really looking forward to that. I think Jair Brown versus Kittle. Again, you want to set the tone, right? You want to set your bar against some of the best talent in the world. All right. Well, how about Kittle versus Brown? Whoo! Sign me up for that. Dude, there are so many good matchups in this camp. I see some of you guys dropping some in the chat. Keep them coming if you keep thinking, Benny. I like this one. This one is the battle of the guys who might have the most to gain from training camp. Marcelino McCrary Ball versus Jordan Mason one-on-ones is going to be special. I am really hyped on that. Like, I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. Like, I do think Oren Burks is locked in right now as your LB3, but I think the guy who is going to challenge that the most this year is going to be Marcelino McCrary Ball. Again, I love DFF. D Winters has a lot of potential. Jalen Graham is interesting. Marcus Robinson, made the final 53 man last year. There are great options, but I truly believe that Marcelino McCrary Ball is going to be the guy that can challenge Oren Burks for snaps to replace Aziz Al-Shaair. Marcelino, man, has gotten bigger, stronger. He's going to be faster. And I really think he has an opportunity to be like a Dre Greenlaw 2.0. And when you get a Dre Greenlaw 2.0 against JP Mason, who we know, of course, is a lock to make this roster, but really has an opportunity to push on Elijah Mitchell for more reps and more snaps, I am hyped on that. This is a good one, Roberto. This one, I agree 100%. I am looking forward to this heavyweight bout of year 2 players, year 2 undrafted players. Again, just speaks to the 49ers' effectiveness to be able to, one, identify undrafted free agent talent, but to develop undrafted free agent talent. And if Marcelino can make that jump, Marcelino can absolutely make this roster and make it a very difficult conversation for the 49ers front office when it comes to figuring out who the final 53 is going to be. I agree. I think that's a good one. So again, right now we're talking about offense versus defense. In a second, we will transition to position battles. So guys who are vying for spots against the guys in the same room. But what other offense versus defense battles are you looking for? Oh, I saw someone a while ago. Let me see if I can find it again. This one. Yes. I am going to be watching Colton McKivitz like a hawk. Now, I've watched Colton McKivitz the past 2 training camps pretty closely. And because I've been trying to identify who the swing tackle is. We've heard a lot about Jalen Moore, right? At one point, we had Sean Coleman. We had we brought in some veteran tackles in the past. So we're always trying to identify. We're always trying to identify who that swing tackle was, because obviously you had McGlinchey and Trent. Who's your swing guy? Is it Jalen? Is it Colton? Well, Colton, to me, over the years has proved he is the swing tackle. So the fact that the 49ers have a ton of confidence in Colton to walk into this season with him as the starter really doesn't surprise me. Because obviously you guys know, going back to the draft coverage, I wanted a tackle in the 3rd. I thought it was a great draft to be able to stash a guy. And I've always said it, like, I wanted the 49ers to draft a tackle to challenge for the starting job, not be given the job. And if you had a rookie versus Colton McKivitz, and Colton McKivitz won that particular battle, I wouldn't have been surprised nor shocked at all. But what that would have been is you get a tackle in there on a rookie deal, and you have him become your swing tackle to replace Colton McKivitz, and then maybe that tackle eventually replaces Colton McKivitz as the starter. Well, we know the 49ers didn't go that route, but I think that's because they felt pretty comfortable with the guys that they had on the roster. So the what is going to be interesting, though, is these types of battles: Drake Jackson versus Colton McKivitz. Also, someone else said Colton McKivitz versus Nick Bosa. Yeah, Colton McKivitz versus the field is going to be a fun one. How does he handle with length? How does he handle length? How does he handle speed? How does he handle the full package of Nick Bosa? What are his limitations in pass protection? Does he stand up in pass protection? Does he struggle in pass protection? How does he translate to the run game? Going to be a phenomenal. Anything Colton McKivitz does, this is the thing though. It's like the whole offensive line. I can't wait to watch. I really can't. Burford, year 2 Burford. I'm expecting a big jump from year 2 Burford. Brendel, I'm expecting a jump. Banks, I'm expecting a jump. I'm expecting all three interior guys to get better and take steps forward. So I'm hyped about that, man. Yeah, McKivitz versus the field. But yeah, Drake Jackson versus Trent. You want to talk about a matchup? What about Drake Jackson versus Trent Williams? Just to see how Drake has evolved his game. And you put him up against, Hall of Fame boy, Trent Williams. Woo! How does he handle that? How has his game matured and evolved to be able to go up against the premier offensive tackle, arguably, to ever play the game? How does he look against him? I'm looking forward to that. Really, really excited about that particular matchup. So Drake Jackson versus Colton, Drake Jackson versus Trent. Excited about that one for sure. What's good, Cheyenne? Welcome. Let's see. We're talking matchups. I see some good one. I'm gonna get to that Tay Martin one. I got something on Tay. I for sure am gonna get to that Tay Martin one. Let's see. What am I looking forward to seeing? Again, I stick true to my roots. I'm looking forward to O-line, D-line. That it's really, really the thing that I get the most enjoyment out of watching O-line versus D-line and watching how that comes together. I really do. O-line versus D-line it just really gets me going. Looking forward to that. And of course, how does the quarterback situation play out? We'll obviously be watching that, but the O-line, D-line, man, always gets the juices flowing. Let's see. Hufanga versus the quarterback room. I'm excited for Hufanga, man. I think Hufanga is going to take another step. I think he's going to take another step forward. I think he's going to improve over what he did last year. So whatever that looks like, I don't even know, but I think Hufanga is going to be better, which is going to be wild. Man, it's exciting. It's an exciting time of the year. That's why today's energy feels a little bit different. I feel like we're out of we're still in the off season, but I can see the end of it, and it's making me really happy because this off season has sucked, and I can't wait to get out of it. And we're so close. Man, Tay Martin is my super sleeper, man. He's my super sleeper. If anyone is going to sneak onto this roster, it could be Tay Martin. Tay Martin, he was one of my favorite undrafted free agents last year when they signed their whole crop. Loved what I saw on tape from Tay. Then getting into training camp, he was a late bloomer in training camp because, again, let me break it down for you in regards to roster politics. It's not even roster politics. There's so limited reps in training camp. I've said this before. You don't want to go to training camp to try to learn. That's not what training camp is for in the NFL. In college, yeah, 100%. You go to training camp to get in shape. You go to training camp to learn how to play football better. In the NFL, that's not the case. In the NFL, the expectation is you show up to training camp ready to go. There's probably 6 padded practices, and then you're in preseason. Like, there isn't enough time. There aren't enough reps, and there's so limited opportunity that you cannot have the mindset heading into training camp, like, I'll improve my game in training camp. No. You show up to training camp improved, and you just have to build upon that. Like, training camp isn't for this is the league. Like, this is the NFL. Like, you cannot have the mentality that you're heading into training camp like, oh, I'll get better. I'll work on, like, of course you're always working on it. But you got to spend this whole off season for the rookies, second-year players, veterans getting ready for training camp. And then when you show up, it's go time. There's no messing around. If you start messing up, they're going to pull your reps and they're going to give your reps to someone else. And then you're going to be in a worse off spot. So with Tay Martin, he didn't get a lot of reps last year. He had to claw to get his reps. And when he was getting his reps, he was making the most of them. Tay Martin, and then to the point where Tay Martin was called up 3 times last year for game days. So Tay Martin over time has built trust with this coaching staff, has built trust in this team. Now, he hasn't been used on the field as a wide receiver. He's been primarily special teams. But Tay Martin has size, hands, routes, high point ability. Tay Martin is one of the more intriguing under the radar prospects heading in to this training camp. That's a name that I think you're going to hear about in reports of Tay Martin having a wow catch, going up and snagging a 50-50 ball. Like, you're going to hear about that. Tay Martin can cook you off the line, but then he also has the physicality and the frame to go up and get it. Tay Martin is a dude that you should not sleep on. The only problem that Tay Martin has is that he's facing a stacked wide receiver room. That's his biggest problem. His biggest problem isn't his talent. His biggest problem isn't his ability. His biggest problem is that the 49ers are just they're just stacked. Like, that's his biggest issue is he's got to beat some guys out to make the active. So it'll be interesting to see. Speaking of his frame, I mean, my guy tagged me in this video. His wide receiver coach tagged me in this video from this weekend of Tay cooking. But I mean, look. Right. I'll turn the audio off. I mean, look at the frame on this guy. Like, he has the length. He can cook you off the line. Like, and he's working with, in my opinion, the best wide receiver trainer in the game right now. This guy trains everyone. Trains Debo, trades Waddle, trades all these dudes. He just ran the Panthers little get together. I don't know if you guys saw that video with Bryce, Thielen, Chark, all those guys, Terrence Marshall. He was out there running that thing. This is Tay Martin again, if I wasn't clear. But Tay is someone that I would not sleep on. Again, his roster spot is a big-time TBD. Can he make the 53? I don't know. But what I do know is he's an NFL wide receiver. That's what I know. This guy can play in the NFL. This guy could be on an active roster somewhere. He's an older second-year player. I think he's either 25 or 26 because he was one of those 5-year college guys with the whole COVID thing. But, I mean, the size that he offers, the agility that he brings, and is like, don't sleep. Just saying, don't sleep. Love me some Tay Martin. Love me some Tay Martin. So, I mean, for this question right here, I personally haven't seen Ronnie Bell, so I can't give My eval on Ronnie Bell is an incomplete. So for right now, I would give it to Tay because I do know what Tay can offer. I do believe Tay has improved and will get better, and I know what Tay's full skill set is. So I think Tay right now is the better wide receiver, but that's also admittedly saying my Ronnie Bell eval. I just have to mark it as incomplete, but I'll know more in training camp for sure. But right now, because again, I just like to get my eyes on them. I like to, I understand other people are going to give their evals and things like that from OTAs and stuff like that, but I always just the biggest thing that I've learned in this journey of trying to evaluate players is you'll always like you want to bounce opinions like off people you trust and things like that. But at the end of the day, for me, I have to make the eval off my eyes. I have to make the eval off of what I've seen. And so until then, I've seen some things from Ronnie Bell that are intriguing, but I haven't seen enough. I haven't seen enough sample size for me to give a definitive on Ronnie Bell. I've seen enough from Tay that I know what Tay's building upon. And so I think based on that, I would pick Tay. But again, Ronnie Bell, a little bit of an incomplete eval on him. So I'll obviously have a much better idea of what I think of Ronnie Bell in training camp. I'm intrigued by Ronnie Bell. I'll say that. I'm intrigued by him. I think he is a talented wide receiver, and it's cliche, but he does seem like that type of wide receiver that got that dog in him. Like he seems like he's about it. That some of the urgency that I've seen from him and some of the clips from OTAs, that's good. You want to see that type of energy out of guys like that. So it'll be interesting to see what he looks like in training camp. I'm definitely intrigued by this entire wide receiver situation because honestly, if we can even transition this into position battles, right? Because we were talking offense versus defense battles, and this is where we can transition it into positional battles. Because, for example, the wide receiver room is stacked. These are the wide receivers that the 49ers will be having so far heading into training camp that I think as of right now are battling for 5 spots. You hear 6. The 49ers have carried 7 under Kyle Shanahan. Last year they carried 5. I believe they're going to carry 5 again. But these are the wide receivers that they have heading into training camp. Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, Tate Martin, Chris Connolly, Willie Snead, Daz Newsome, Isaiah Winstead. It's a stacked wide receiver room. I mean, even when you're talking about fringe guys, Chris Connolly, he's had some success in this league. He's an older player, but he's had some success in this league. Willie Snead has had success in this league. Isaiah Winstead, obviously the social media claim to fame, not claim to fame, but was helped him get onto the roster. Daz Newsome, who was pretty solid coming out of North Carolina, hasn't really been able to prove anything yet. But Daz is, I think, a talented wide receiver. And then, of course, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod. There's a lot of good wide receivers in this class or in this room. So it's gonna be a dogfight. It's gonna be a dogfight for a lot of positions. A lot of positions are going to be going at it. How about them? Niner says, Brad, do you think Connolly has a shot at the 53? He's athletic, vertical threat, and he's one of the best blocking wide receivers every year. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. I don't know. This wide receiver camp battle is going to it's the wide receivers versus the linebackers, in my opinion, for right now for having the toughest cuts. Like the toughest battles, positional battles. There's so many good quality wide receivers, in my opinion, but I think the numbers are going to be limited. I if I'm wrong on this, I'll gladly eat it, but I still believe the 49ers are going to be carrying 4 tight ends and 5 wide receivers, 4 running backs, 1 fullback, 3 quarterbacks. So because of that, and 8 offensive linemen, 9 offensive linemen, they're at a point where they can only carry so many guys. And who makes it? To me, Aiyuk, Debo, Jennings are guys that I think that are going to make it. I just think they are. Jennings is in a contract year, so that does make it a little bit more complicated with what his future holds. And speaking of future, Jesse of Last Second Sports said this is why I wouldn't rule out a Jennings trade or a Gray cut. Not that either are likely, but both are possible, in my opinion. And to be honest with you, even though I don't agree that Gray will get cut, I do agree that these are both possible. Like, again, I don't think Jennings will be traded. I don't think Gray will be cut, but I do think both are possibilities. And that's you can make the same case for the linebackers as well. You have Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Warren Burks, D. Winters, Flanagan Fowles, Jalen Graham, Marcelino McCrary Ball, Curtis Robinson. Same conversation. Someone might get cut that we're not expecting. Someone might get traded that we're not expecting. And that is all valid. And that's what you're up against when you have these talented rosters like this. And with so much talent in the wide receiver room, I wouldn't be surprised if someone got traded. Like, I think that right now, you do make a good point. Like, I guess you really could say Brandon Aiyuk and Debo Samuel right now are your real locks. Like, your real, they're not going anywhere. Like, if the 49ers traded Brandon Aiyuk, I think that would be irresponsible in regards to attempting to win another ring. I think if you are going to challenge for a ring and you are really going to go after that, you cannot even think about not having Aiyuk, especially at $4 million this year. Aiyuk is here this year. Debo is here this year. To Jesse's point, it might get their questions could arise between Jawan, Danny, Ray. Do those guys make it? This is what I agree with. This is kind of where I think that particular battle could happen if, let's say, a Chris Connolly fights for a spot, Tay Martin fights for a spot, if Ronnie Bell fights for a spot. I think the first initial battle is going to be Danny Gray versus Ray, because I actually do think Danny and Ray are they're not super similar. They're somewhat similar. And if the 49ers are trying to make the best of that room and not doubling up on talent that is similar, because like we talked about, Aiyuk is different than Debo, and Debo is different than Jawan, and Jawan is different than Brandon. They're all different. We're talking about the top 3 guys. So do you want to keep 2 guys on the back end, Danny or Ray, that are somewhat similar? Or do you pick one over the other? So it'll be interesting, man. It really, really will. Again, I continue to voice my opinion on Danny Gray, that I do think Danny Gray takes a step forward in year 2. I do think Danny makes the roster. But we'll see. Things can change. Things can change in a hurry. And I know Danny Gray right now is on the radar for 49er fans of wanting to see it. They don't want to hear about it anymore. They want to see it from Ray Ray. Or excuse me, not Ray Ray, from Danny. So big year for Danny. Big training camp for Danny. I think it's a big training camp for Ray Ray. I think Javon, for the most part, is solidified. I think they could trade Javon, but I just feel like he's another guy that if you want to really compete for a Super Bowl this year, I would much rather have Javon right now opposed to Ronnie Bell or Chris Conley or Tay Martin. I feel like Jawan has a specific role that he can provide. I feel like there's a certain skill set that he provides that none of the other guys really have right now in regards to his size. We know, I mean, his nickname is Third and Jawan for a reason. I feel like he fits into this locker room. So, I mean, there's so many positives with Jawan's game on top of him being cheap that I would imagine the 49ers keep him around for all those reasons. He's a glue guy. He fits what they want. He's a different skill set, and he's cheap. Could they get value for Jawan? Absolutely, they could get value for Jawan. Should they get value for Jawan? That is definitely an interesting question, though. That is definitely an interesting question. I would keep Jawan. If I was, my name was Brad Lynch, I would be keeping Jawan. It would be very, very. It's an interesting point though, and conversation because this wide receiver room is going to be intense. Wide receiver is going to be intense because also again, wide receivers and tight ends are linked in my opinion because I think whether you're keeping 4 tight ends or 3 tight ends is going to have the direct correlation to how many wide receivers they keep. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think Kyle, put yourself in Kyle's shoes. Do you think Kyle would feel confident heading into a season with 3 tight ends, 2 of them being rookies? Do you believe that? I think if we're being honest with ourselves and trying our best to put on our Kyle Shanahan hat, I think we would say Kyle's not going to be confident with Kittle and 2 rookies at tight end. That's just my hunch. That's just my look at it. Because we know how much these tight ends aren't normal tight ends here. Okay? These aren't your Travis Kelce's. These aren't like you have to have a PhD in run blocking to be able to get on the field as a tight end with this team. Ask Ross Dwelly. It doesn't matter how good your hands are. If you can't execute the blocking scheme to their level, you will not get on the field. What do we know? We don't even know yet. We haven't put on pads yet. We don't even know how Braden Willis or Cameron Latu hold up in the run game, how quickly they pick up Kyle's scheme, because as you know, Kyle's scheme is very intricate, especially from a blocking standpoint. I'm talking about a slight angle changes the entire outcome of a particular block. Where you put your head, where you put your hands, where your hips are, where your feet are, what you do after you make contact, how do you set up contact, what is the entire process look? There's a lot of little things that you got to check off the box. in regards to playing tight end for this team. That's why I think Warner is the one who's going to make it. I don't think Dwelly's going to make this team. I think right now Dwelly, Fumagalli are camp bodies. They know the scheme, they know the team, great locker room guys. They know they're great to have. But I think when it comes down to cut day, Kyle's going to keep 4. It's going to be Kittle, Willis, Warner, Latu. Because I don't believe Kyle will be able to sleep at night just with the idea of Kittle one ding up away from all of a sudden you're relying on 2 rookie tight ends to be able to execute your playbook the way you intend it to be executed. And we know Kyle, he wants it a certain way. And what we do know is Warner can do that. We know that. Right? Like, we know Warner can do it. We've seen it. We have lots of tape reference to go back to. Warner can execute this blocking game. Warner just is unfortunately one-dimensional. That's the only problem right now with Warner is if he added just a slight threat as a receiver, he would be a pretty good tight end. But right now, Warner just doesn't offer any threat as a receiver. So it makes him really one-dimensional. And when Warner's on the field, he's basically a glorified fullback for the most part. But hey, Kyle needs those. So that's why I think this wide receiver thing becomes really difficult because it's 5 wide receiver spots. I think they have to keep 4 tight ends. I think they have to. I think you can. I just can't see Kyle going into this year with 2 rookie tight ends behind George, and that's it. Maybe Warner makes it around to the practice squad. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I can't see Kyle sleeping at night knowing it's Kittle and 2 rookies behind him. I think Willis is going to prove he's good enough to make the roster. I really do. But it really feels like, to me, it's almost like Willis versus Bell. Which guy stands out more? And does that have a determination on what the tight end room looks like? Because maybe Kyle would feel more comfortable with a, I don't know, Kittle, Warner, Latu stack if Bell is really just lighting up at training camp. Those are the questions. Those are the things we're going to be looking at. Those are what we're going to be looking for, is which guy takes that step forward. It's going to be very interesting to see. What's good throwback? Yeah, I think Brandon Willis makes the team. That's why I think they keep 4. I really do think Willis is going to prove that he's good. I think Willis has a lot of potential in multiple different areas, and I think he's going to make this roster, which is why I think they're going to keep 4 tight ends, and it's going to be back to 5 wide receivers. So again, we identified early on in the stream offense versus defense battles that we're looking for, and now we're at the part of the stream where we're identifying position battles. We're identifying how each position battle is connected to one another, and it's gonna be interesting. Again, Travis Bell is special. I can see him playing in the NFL. That's the crazy part with this roster is we can see all these guys playing in the NFL. I can see Ronnie Bell playing in the NFL. I can see Tay Martin playing in the NFL. I can see Chris Conley playing in the NFL. I can see Willie Snead playing in the NFL. I can see Isaiah Winstead playing. The same with Daz Newsome. I can see all of them. That's why this training camp is going to be so fun. So fun. And listen, we've went an hour talking about the top battles heading into training camp. We haven't talked about the quarterback once. And we haven't even really divulged into cornerbacks, safeties. We haven't talked kicker battle. We haven't talked linebacker. We talked about linebacker 3 battle. We did. But we really didn't talk about edge battle. Drake Jackson versus Robert Beal versus Clelin Ferrell versus Austin Bryant versus Spencer Wagee. We haven't talked about that. We haven't talked about that at all. So there's a lot of good stuff here, man. There's a lot of good stuff here. I'm super excited about this training camp. There's so many battles that are going to be going on. I'm excited to see how Feliciano does because, I mean, we talked to Feliciano. We know his mentality. His mentality is he wants to be a starter. He didn't. Feliciano said, worst case scenario, I'm a backup. You know, he's like, I didn't come here to be a backup. So we know Feliciano has the mindset heading into this training camp that he wants to win a job. So I'm not sleeping on him at all. Ooh, this is a good question. Most impactful training camp in recent memory. This one's easy for me. I'm not sure I have been this swayed by a player because, again, I started first training camp I ever attended was 2010. So 2011. 2011. Yeah. Yeah. 2000 no. Yeah, 2011 training camp. So Kaepernick's rookie year. That was the first training camp I ever attended. So that was 2011. And I've gone to a lot of training camp practices since then. I've been fully covering training camp for this will be my 3rd year, but I also had went to training camps in 2019 and leading up to that. So I've been to a lot of training camp practices. The most impactful training camp in recent memory, hands down, has to be Jordan Mason. I have never felt more sure about a player in training camp than Jordan Mason. Again, Justin's in the chat. He day one put me on. He's like, you got to watch Jordan Mason. Like, okay. Watch Jordan Mason. Yep, I see it. But I got to see it. You know what I mean? Like, I saw it on tape, but I was like, I want to see it in person. I want to see it at the NFL level. The most impactful training camp has to be Jordan Mason recently. I mean, Jordan Mason literally beat out Trey Sermon and JaMychal Hasty in the same camp. Really impressive. Well, not only did he beat out those two, but he also beat out TDP, a 3rd rounder run. He beat out 2 3rd rounders and JaMychal Hasty, a guy who was coming off a pretty solid year for the 49ers and a solid camp. Don't forget last year, JaMychal Hasty was having a really good camp. Really good camp. He looked good in training camp. So for me, the most impactful for sure was Jordan Mason because I knew at the end of that training camp that the 49ers would be making a massive mistake if they cut him. Because if they cut him, I was like, he's going to get signed somewhere else. The Seattle Seahawks are going to swoop him. Someone's going to pick him up. And it is going to be a nightmare for the 49ers because if they kept Trey Sermon and cut Jordan Mason and then ultimately cut Trey Sermon later on down the road and they lost out on Jordan Mason, that would have been bad. Yes, Justin. They traded away Jeff Wilson too. Jordan Mason, guys, has definitely had the most impactful training camp that I've seen in a long time because he's also an undrafted free agent and those guys don't get given anything. They don't get reps. You have to earn those reps. You have to climb all the way up the depth chart from the back. Like you get no handouts as an undrafted free agent. Jordan absolutely proved it in last year's training camp. Again, if you haven't been to a training camp, you don't even know how good he is as a wide receiver out of the backfield. Uh, so there's still an element to Jordan Mason's game that if you didn't go to training camp, you still haven't seen. And it's arguably just as good as his running ability in between the tackles. JP, man, shout out to that guy. Talk about having a good camp and asserting yourself. Absolutely, JP. Justin, appreciate the super chat, my boy. He says, I like Daz Newsome in the draft. I was jealous that the Bears got him. I was too. I like that. Like as a slot, like I like Daz quite a bit. I thought he was talented. I thought he had some skills. I almost forgot that he was on the 49ers roster at one point. But yeah, like he's even a guy that I think has a ton of upside. Does he ever make the 49ers roster with how it's slated? Probably not, but maybe a practice squad guy that you bring up maybe gets, but we know how it goes, right? All you need is one opportunity. Once you get that opportunity, you take advantage of that opportunity, then it's going to be really hard to not give you that op. So yeah, Daz is a guy that I like. I liked him a lot coming out of college, man. He looked good. Um, let's see. Ooh. We getting dark. Normally we like to stay optimistic here, but this is a worthy question because it's not just risers. There's fallers. Last year, Dwelly fell hard. I thought Dwelly was going to be a guy that had the opportunity to become one of the better tight ends in the NFL. Heading into 2021, like I started to like he looked bigger. I was like, oh, okay, it's happening. Like Dwelly's evolving. He's like a rare Pokemon. He's finally evolving. He evolved the wrong direction. Ambry last year had a really bad training camp. He fell off last year. So guys that I mean, dude, Ambry has a massive training camp ahead of him. He's got to prove he's not a bust. Ambry, Ty Davis Price. Again, we just got done talking about running backs. Calvin Laybourne has a lot of talent. Laybourne is extremely talented. And not only is he extremely talented, he's more so a talent that is comparable to CMC. Where you already have Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason who are really similar, and then TDP is kind of similar to that, but then you have CMC who isn't like any of them. Well, Laybourne is more close to CMC than he is Mitchell or Mason. So that's Ty's biggest uphill battle, in my opinion, is proving that Laybourne's skill set doesn't make him obsolete, because Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell, in theory, kind of make TDP obsolete because they're very similar running backs and have very similar running styles. That if you can get a Laybourne that offers something different, and especially as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and he has really dynamic cutting ability. That's going to be one that we're going to have to watch for sure is TDP. TDP, Ambry, in regards to downfall, we don't want them to go the wrong direction. I'm terrible with pronunciation, so it's Layburn. Appreciate it. Layburn. Laball. Downfalls. Who could take steps backwards? Gibson, I'm interested in. I'm really interested in Tashawn Gibson. Tashawn to me, last year really exceeded expectations by far. I really didn't expect Tashawn Gibson to be much of anything for the 49ers. And he proved, yeah, I mean, he had 5 interceptions last year. And he basically took the starting job from Jimmy Ward. So uh, I'm just interested to see what his year looks like, what his training camp looks like. I do. This is a good one. Jalen Moore, I think, is on the hot seat as well. Um, Jalen Moore, because now you're talking about, who's going to be your swing offensive lineman. Jonathan Feliciano's a lock in my opinion. Um, they really like Nick Sakel, but does Leroy Watson make a jump, over Jalen Moore? It's going to be interesting. Jalen Moore is for sure going to be, because he's just been inconsistent. Like the thing with Jalen Moore is he has starting upside, but his floor is really he has a pretty decent ceiling, but he has an insane floor as well. And when we talk about floor, like his his series that he had against the Denver Broncos, I think it was a week 3 last year, was one of the worst sequences I may have ever seen from an offensive lineman. Like he got beat on like 3 to 4 consecutive plays, extremely bad. But he's also rebounded. He rebounded, I think, against the Panthers. So yeah, I think Jalen Moore, that's a fair one. Got to watch for how he does. Does he take a step towards his ceiling, or does he take a step towards the basement? So we got to find out about that. That's going to be an interesting one. Um, yeah. So, but I really don't see too many guys taking steps backwards. There are definitely some candidates for sure, but I do see pretty much like most of this roster trending upwards. Like Samuel Womack, even though he might not be starting, I still think he's going to trend upward. Deshaun Jameson is going to be fascinating to watch. I've heard some good things about Deshaun Jameson. See if that will be able to transfer. I mean, he has really good athletic traits and tools. Will that translate to pads? Will be interesting. Taylor Hawkins is a guy that is very intriguing as a safety. Quantrez Knight is intriguing. I think Quantrez Knight has an ability to be an NFL type player that could be on an active roster, maybe in a year or two. So, Miles Hartsfield, how does he perform? There's a lot of guys, man. It's gonna be a fun camp, dude. I'm super excited. I'm super excited, man. The roster does need to get younger and cheaper, though. Uh, I don't think they need to get cheaper necessarily. I think they're about 10 million. You have about 10 million in cap space. Uh, 10 million in cap space. And when Nick Bosa signs, his deal won't really have too much of an impact on this year's cap. So from that particular standpoint, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be okay for sure. But yeah, it will be interesting. Well, he said have to pay Aiyuk and Bosa. They technically only have to pay Bosa. The 49ers have set it up where they technically don't have to pay Aiyuk for 2 more years. So he's under team control. So they technically don't have to pay him. Um Aiyuk, that is, because he's getting $4 million this year. Then he'll get $14 million on the following year. And so Nick Bosa played last year on his 5th-year option. Right? I think that's how it worked. Let me double check. Let me double check. Because or is this year technically Bosa's 5th-year option? Anyways, whatever they pay Bosa, the cap is going to be pushed out. So the cap's going to be pushed out, and Aiyuk doesn't need to get paid this year. So it's definitely something they'll have to consider for sure. But it's not. I don't think paying Aiyuk is a top priority for them right now. Because if we look at Bosa, God, my internet is moving super slow. So yeah, he's 1, 2, 3. He's on this. This is his 5th-year option year. So he would be heading into play on his 5th-year option this year. So I would imagine that's the same for Aiyuk. So they don't have to pay Aiyuk for one more year. Aiyuk is on the books for $4 million, I think, next year, or this year, which he'll play on. The conversations for Aiyuk happen the following year. So, yeah, Aiyuk doesn't have to be paid this year. Aiyuk will take a cap hit of $3.9 million this year, basically 4, and they have him under the 5th-year option, so he's not going to be a unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. So they have some time. It's going to be potentially like Bosa, I would imagine. A worst case scenario, Aiyuk plays out on his 5th-year option at 14. And they decide if they want to re-sign him at that point or not. So it'll be interesting. Charlene says, I'm interested to see what Kinlaw provides this season. Me too. I am interested in that. I do want to see Kinlaw take a step forward. Obviously, I don't know if he can take too many steps backwards because just because he hasn't been available, and that's just been the hardest part with Kinlaw is just availability, I would say. I still think he has talent, and I still think he can be a player that contributes to wins, but he's just got to get on the field. And if he can stay healthy, I think he would be a positive asset. But that's just the biggest question with him is can he get on the field and all that stuff. And I guess, in typical 49ers fashion, of course, we're going to be watching the quarterbacks. I'm not really too interested in anything 49ers quarterback related outside of Brock Purdy injury updates that just kind of detail where his progression is. Obviously, we heard from Matt Mayoko saying that is kind of hinting at Trey dropping to 3rd on the depth chart. And if he's 3rd, then potentially getting shopped or traded. Or I don't even know if he's hinting at potentially cutting him. Like I don't know, man. Like I really only care about right now any potential updates that come out from Brock Purdy and his ability to be on track for training camp. Outside of that, we'll see what the depth chart looks like day 1 of training camp. We'll see. And if it turns out that Trey Lance gets jumped by Sam Darnold, then he got jumped by Sam Darnold. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm shocked by that, but I'm also not going to go crazy talking about it either because I really don't. It's just, it is what it is. We're not going to know until training camp, So, with the 49ers quarterback situation, we'll find out in training camp. Biggest piece to fall is Purdy's health, his return back. Does he come back? Is he, and if so, is he in line to be the starter? If so, okay, and that's what it is. So really not much to add with the quarterback situation. Because that's a 49ers problem. That's not. I've gone beyond. I've said so much about it. I can't edit anything new. There will be no new analysis I'll be providing on the quarterbacks. And so the only thing I can really say is we have to wait and see. And then we go from there. How am I living? Oh, I'm great. I've had some good energy today to come on and talk 49ers for like the first time in a couple weeks. I'm not going to lie. It's been a long off season. Oh boy. It's been a long, grueling, repetitive, confusing, just ugh. Anytime the 49ers quarterback is at the forefront of a offseason, it's just not going to be a good offseason. Because we can't have like conversations. Like there's no agreeing to disagree. It's just like everyone trying to dunk on each other with quarterback takes. And it's just like, I don't even want to partake anymore. I don't even want to give you my opinion. But I'm having a good time, man, because I'm excited about training camp. Like I'm hyped. We're going about an hour 30 today on a Monday, July 10th, because I'm hyped. I'm hyped about training camp. That's really what I'm looking forward to. So because training camp is almost here, that's where I'm like getting excited. I'm getting the juices flowing again because I'm starting to think I have to actually start preparing for training camp. I got to start planning it into my schedule. I got to start, okay, what days am I going to be there? We don't know what days are going to be available yet. I did speak to someone with the 49ers. Training camp will be open to the public. I can confirm. They just said in the next couple days. So be prepared in the next couple days. We will get alerted to when the open practices are, because I know a lot of fans are waiting for that. They're, myself included. I want to know when the open practices are going to be. I'm like, it's like, wait, are you guys going to have open practice this year? And they're like, yes, we are. Don't worry. A couple more days, we'll get you some more info. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, bet. So I was like, man, if y'all were going to hit me with, we're not having open training camp practices this year, I would have been very sad. So I would imagine today, tomorrow, sometime this week, we'll find out when those days are. And then they'll put the tickets on sale and we can get after it. It's not free, but it's like typically like $5 a ticket. 49ers are awesome. They don't charge through the nose for the tickets. Very reasonably priced. Like $5 the last couple years. So super reasonably priced. Super worth the trip. It's always a good time. I always have a fun time out there. Do you tier rank other 49ers podcasts? I don't. I actually, believe it or not, don't listen to other 40. I pop in every once in a while, but I really don't listen to other 49ers podcasts because I'm always trying to figure out what content I'm posting. Like, and now, you know, the there's now threads, right? So like I'm a content creator, but I'm also a social media manager. I manage YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, now threads. There's not enough time in the day. I am so spread thin. might have to might have to bring on some interns this year. I don't know. I got to figure it out, man. I have too much going on. Trying to make content, post content. We do lives, but also update all my other social accounts while staying on top of new like bro, it's been a wild evolution. I'm having a good time. I can't complain at all, but boy, does it keep me busy. Boy, does it keep me busy. And if you're not on Threads, get on Threads, man. Follow me on Threads. Justin said, "I'm on Threads now. I deleted Twitter." Um, my current claim to fame right now on Threads is that the 49ers followed me. Shout out the 49ers. The 49ers follow 5 accounts, 6 accounts. 49ers follow 6 accounts, and I am one of them. No, they've added more. The 49ers follow the NFL, San Jose Earthquakes, Broncos, NFL Fantasy, Dr. Disrespect, Lindsey Polaris, George Kittle, and me. So out of 8 people the 49ers follow on Threads, I'm one of them. So shout out to admin. I got so much love and respect for 49ers admin. They always show love back to me. And so that was super cool to see that the 49ers official account follows me on Threads. So you should follow me on Threads. Another cool moment too was someone tagged Tim the Tapman because he's a Cowboys fan, the gamer. They tagged him on one of I made a Cowboys post, and Tim the Tapman, they tagged him on it. And I was like, because Dr. Disrespect is a 49ers fan. And I was like, oh, let me see if the doc is on Threads yet. And I pop over to his account and it says follow back. I was like, oh, I was like, dang. I was like, Dr. Disrespect went out of his way to follow me on Threads first. I was like, that shouldn't fill me up with as much joy as it does, but I was like, dang, that's kind of cool. I was like, Dr. Disrespect followed me on Threads before I could even follow him. Same thing with Talanoa too. I was like, oh, shout out Talanoa. My boy's already following me. Let's go. So come through on Threads. Threads is going to take over. Now, there's always going to be Twitter. And there's always going to be Twitter users. But Threads will take over Twitter. If you're like, I know a lot of people don't like, it's hard to rationalize like how that's going to happen. I've been doing social media for the better part of 12, 13, 14 years now. God, I'm old. But I've been doing social media. So I pay attention to all the trends. I know all the back end stuff with social media. Threads will take over. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Twitter won't die. Twitter will have its user base always, but Threads will become much bigger. It's just going to happen. It's already happening. No other social media platform has taken over like Threads has this fast. Over 100 million users in 5 days. I think the total user base for Twitter is like 350 million, like overall. and Threads is already at 100 mil in 5 days. And Meta's ecosystem is over billion. They have billion over. They're in the billions when it comes to users. So this is the thing with social media. Like, there's very minimal crossover between my Instagram following and my Twitter following. I don't have a big crossover. Like, you either follow me on Twitter or you follow me on Instagram. There's probably like 5% of my 150,000 followers on Instagram that also follow me on Twitter. I think I'm at 41,000 on Twitter. Like, there's real limited crossover. The thing that makes Threads a real threat is because everyone on Threads is on Instagram, and everyone who's on Instagram is going to Threads. And that's why it's going to have the impact that it's going to have. It's really minimal app right now. It's really minimal. There's not a whole lot going on, but I think that actually works to their benefit. Threads, I mean, you have the user base. Once they figure it out, once they fix it, once they add more features to it, and you're getting the Instagram, like, everyone's on Instagram, not everyone's on Twitter. So you're getting this whole crew of everyone who's always on Instagram are now going to be on a Twitter-like platform, but it's Threads. So we'll see. I like this one. YouTube all the way. But that's the thing. You follow me, I got you on every platform. I got you on TikTok. I got you on Facebook. I got you on Twitter still. But again, social media is always evolving. Now we got new platforms, all that stuff. So follow me on Threads if you haven't already. What are we at? We're at, I think we're at 12,000 on Threads. Yeah, we're at 12.2 on Threads. Come through on Threads. Again, Threads, for me, it's developing a new form of 49ers content, because I just don't want to be repurposing all the same crap. So you got to kind of reinvent yourself. So that's the cool thing with Threads, is I can kind of like do something a little different than I do on Twitter, than I do on Instagram, than I do on YouTube. So it's just another thing. But I do have a Twitch. I'm technically streaming on Twitch right now. But Twitch has just never done anything. So yeah, I leave Twitch alone. But I have it, and I'm technically streaming on it right this second. But yeah. Anyways, I'm hyped. The end of the off season is near, which means I'm happy. This off season has sucked. I will not sugarcoat it. This has probably been my least favorite off season in the six total. 6 total off seasons that I've done, and I'm excited that it's over. Very excited. So I'm gonna be ready. I'm mentally prepared and ready to go for training camp. So that's where my mentality's at. That's where my mindset is at. And that's what I think a lot of the content's going to look like for the rest of the way out, is just getting ready and talking about things to prepare us for training camp. And I'm really looking forward to it. Shout out to all you guys for tapping in today. Definitely a long one. If you stayed the whole way through, absolutely grab a cookie, because this is a long one today. Shout out to you guys as always. Shout out to SDS. Smash that like button if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Mumbo hit me with the super chat on the way out, so you know what we do. We get hit with the super chat, we come back. Mumbo says, can't wait to see the tight end and safety competition. I agree. We definitely talked about that in depth, Mumbo. Probably about the midway point, I would say go back and listen to it once we get out of here. But again, shout out to you for the super chat. Shout out for anyone who sent a super chat. And of course, shout out if you liked, subscribed, or commented. It's greatly appreciated. I'm out of here for real this time, though. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.